We are witnessing the implosion of a modern-day empire in real time, and it's incredible to see, I gotta say. But for Activision, they have now officially lost the war, and now that the dust is settling, the real information is now coming out. And I gotta say, guys, it's not looking good, but this push for stuff like artificial intelligence and more is not going the way that they wanted it to, because the players seem to be pushing back immensely against what these companies want to normalize. To put it simply, it's because of each and every one of you that's watching this who have all decided to push back against the nonsense that we are now seeing the changes that we have in entertainment today. Like, who would have thought that you had the power all along to make even Call of Duty of all things to bend the knee? But hey, that's what happened, so let's get into it. This comes from thegamebusiness.com. Black Ops 7 is officially down roughly 63% in overall sales in the entirety of Europe right now when you compare it to Battlefield 6, and that is now confirmed 100%, and that is physical and digital sales, by the way. It gets worse for Activision, however, since the game business also confirms, as seen here, that Black Ops 7 is down a staggering 50% in both those sales versions in Europe when compared to Black Ops 6. They do make a note that these sales numbers do not include the streaming player numbers of Black Ops 7 via Game Pass, which, obviously, if you pay the highest level of Game Pass, which is Ultimate, you gain access to Black Ops 7 Day 1. The numbers for Call of Duty via Game Pass are apparently pretty good. However, the money that is made from Game Pass versus actual sales will always pale in comparison. After all, last year, Activision reported that Black Ops 6, as you can see here from PC Gamer, lost them roughly $300 million in potential sales due to the game being available on Game Pass Day 1 for Xbox users. But to make up for that same level of revenue, Activision and Microsoft would roughly need about 15 million new Xbox Game Pass Ultimate tier subscribers just to make up the difference to recoup that loss in revenue. But that is obviously unrealistic because Game Pass is not growing in any real meaningful way, no matter how they try to market it. The subscription service is no two ways about it losing Microsoft more than they are gaining from it overall. What I believe will happen eventually is Game Pass will just probably fall apart. Call of Duty will be taken off the service, and that's pretty much how it's going to go. Plus, economically speaking, in just 3 months of Game Pass, you already paid the full retail amount for Black Ops 7 as if you were to buy a Day 1. As the game business also reports here, about 25% of Black Ops 7 players also bought Battlefield 6. This is actually not a bad statistic because it means that the overwhelming majority of players who bought Black Ops 7 at release are in fact hardcore Call of Duty fans first. Now, does this mean the game has flopped entirely? I don't know if I would go as far as to say that yet. Yes, it did sell half of what Black Ops 6 did in Europe, and this news is from Europe, obviously. It won't include North America or anywhere else. Also, if you want more non-BS content, consider subscribing and more, thank you very much. But either way, this is still a staggering loss of revenue for Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft. And it also proves that they need to stop releasing actual sequels to their sub-series of games a year after another one just released. Some might say it's fine if they rotate between Black Ops and Modern Warfare every year, but I think what we're seeing either way is genuine levels of fatigue starting to settle in. This model just can't work reasonably anymore for Activision. It just proves it now 100%. Of course, regardless, Black Ops 7 was the highest game revenue-wise during its debut week in Europe, as you can see here, which is not really surprising, let's be honest. But again, considering that it's still half of Black Ops 6, that number should have been higher, but they shot themselves in the feet by releasing a sequel to only last year's hit too early, and that's clearly the case that's happening now 100%. But what is also showing is how monolithic Battlefield 6 has become in record time as well, as Games Radar reported here. Battlefield 6 is a big seller, but the actual data puts that data to shame, as seen here from that same article too. Games Radar then claims that Battlefield 6 has apparently outsold the lifetime sales of Battlefield 1 already within its debut month alone. Now, I can't verify this, okay? So don't take this as like gospel claim or whatever, but that is a crazy claim by Games Radar to say. Because in case you guys don't know this already, Battlefield 1, which was obviously set during World War I, that was the highest selling Battlefield game of all time when it first came out out in 2016. Now let's take what Games Radar here said as truth, but I'm going to be a little skeptical, but Battlefield 1 anyways, according to their Wikipedia as shown here, it says that that game sold somewhere near 15 million plus copies in its total lifespan, which is about 9 years so far. This means that Battlefield 6 has skyrocketed past Battlefield 1's lifetime sales somehow in just one single month. Although this cannot be understated how crazy of a boom this is if it's true, because if that's actually accurate, that means that you're telling me that Battlefield 6 has reached over 15 million and then some units already sold in November 2025. So in like a month and a bit, that's crazy, dude. That's Elden Ring, Black Myth, Wukong levels of success. They've already made well over $1 billion from this game alone. Like, that's nuts. Battlefield is now making Call of Duty money, okay? Which is good for them, but it still worries me either way. Because while Call of Duty may have lost this year officially, EA might just learn the wrong lessons from all of this either way. Because back in August 2025 from PC Gamer, an analyst mentioned that EA's plans for Battlefield was to make it into an annual release like Call of Duty, by cycling through 3 studios on 3-year development cycles to hit a new release every fall season to maximize their sales and, of course, player engagement. Michael Pachter is a games analyst and he's the source for this, I guess, but here's the quote from what he said. But Michael claims that he spoke to one of the higher-ups who works on Battlefield and that the goal was to create it into an annual franchise. Although, as Michael Pachter says there, they as an EA won't be ready to actualize this plan for at least 5 or 6 years at least, because they of course need to gather more talent and leadership and make sure that each studio is well equipped enough to make that plan into a real reality. I don't know, man. I'm gonna ask you guys, like, let me know in the comments. Obviously, let's be for real. Do you really want annual Battlefield releases? Like, okay, let's talk hypothetically here. Let's say Battlefield 6 is your Modern Warfare equivalent sub-franchise, right? That means we would also have a World War I or I guess 2 sub-franchise that goes back in time showcasing that level of warfare. And then your third sub-franchise to round this out would be your 2042s, your future war games, I guess. Think of that sub-franchise in Battlefield as the Black Ops equivalent, but in Battlefield terms. Now, let's just theorize that we're, I don't know, 10 years from now, okay? It would go Modern Warfare, Battlefield, World War I or 2, then Future with like robots and laser guns, and then back to Modern Warfare, Battlefield again. And we just rinse repeat this cycle for the rest of eternity. Does that sound enticing to you? Because to me, that makes Battlefield special has always been that they do one game, they support it. And then in the long term that happens, and then maybe 4 years later, you get a new one, give or take. And look, I totally understand there are people out here who all will play Battlefield and Call of Duty and that's it. Like, there's a huge market for that, I understand that, but let's be real. Wouldn't this just turn Battlefield into the same problem-ridden behemoth that Call of Duty has also become? It's kind of like when a warlord gets overtaken by like resistance fighters, but instead of actually changing things for the better, the resistance just takes the place of the warlord's army and they just become the same thing if not worse, you know? I said this before, but frankly, I don't think I would want a new Call of Duty and a new Battlefield every single year. It would be just market saturation to the 10th degree at that point. Personally, if I was either Activision or EA in this scenario, my game plan would be a new game at the earliest every single 2 years. This way, let's say Battlefield 6 is that right now. You get its first year of content, second year they expand upon everything like crazy, and then once it's a well-oiled machine that's full of content, hey, look at that. It's a World War II Battlefield game now, or Future War, or whatever they want to do. So now people migrate to that game. We play World War games, I guess. You start to yearn for Modern Warfare like combat eventually, but by the time a new Modern Warfare game comes out, it's been years since then, and that will not only lead to new hype, but explosions in sales too, as people want that game again. You see, the thing about game sales and franchises in general is that you need to make people yearn for more content and future releases. But when things come out too frequently, it just dilutes the product. Think of it like when you finally eat some pizza or like a steak dinner. I guess, yeah, you could have pizza every day if you wanted to, or cook yourself steak constantly, but eventually it just kind of ruins the novelty of what it is. You know, steak is always going to be good. Sure, like, I love steak, okay? But let's be real, it's gonna taste even better because in between each of those steak meals, you're having maybe a chicken dinner or just something else entirely, right? The point I'm trying to make is you gotta yearn for things to make them feel important, is what I'm trying to get at. It's why I try to ensure that whenever I do beat a game, that the next game I play is something that's completely different. Because if all I play is the same genre all the time with no changes in terms of gameplay mechanics and worlds and whatnot, the games I play would become too samey and boring, you know? And frankly, I don't know about you guys, but as I get older, I also have less time to play these massively always online games. They all want you to invest, live in their their worlds and absorb all the content they make and buy stuff from their stores. You can't do all of that if you have a new Call of Duty and Battlefield every year too. Like the battle passes alone are going to eat up so much of your time, it's pretty crazy. And once you factor in if you have kids or, a job, I don't know, or a family you like hang out with or friends and yada 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 and all the other things, like you can't do all of this at the same time. It's impossible. I just frankly can't see a future where both of these games are smashing together like they're Xenoblade Titans in an ocean over who wins your purchase every single year. It's just going to be a tiring headache mess every single time, not to mention how toxic it would become for the FPS or shooter community, whatever you want to call it. Because every year everyone's going to be on Team Battlefield or Call of Duty or something. It's just going to replace the console wars pretty much. But Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming chimed in on this whole thing too, and here's what he said. Call of Duty is failing now because it's an annual release and they push their teams to hell and back to get a Call of Duty out the door. I don't think they'll change that until there's several consecutive bad years, but Call of Duty really does need a break for players and developers. Again, personally, I would love it if these games were maybe on a 2-year cycle instead. It would actually make me want to invest into each release in a meaningful way. Because the way it's set up right now, there's really no point to do that. By the time I invest in the current game, I guess, the next game is coming in less than a year already. So all my stats will reset, my guns won't really matter in that new game because I can't use them, and whatever skins, if I ever buy any, which I haven't really bought a COD skin in like, I think ever now. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever bought a skin in Call of Duty. But anyways, because I won't use that really in the next game, right? But if it was a 2-year cycle and the game had time to breathe, I would be far more interested. Plus, I think it would be both beneficial for fans and developers alike. Like Tom said, these developers are being worked to the bone to make these release dates. Black Ops 7 took 10 studios across the world to make it. That's not only both expensive and borderline ridiculous to do, you can't reasonably believe that that can be done every single year like this forever. Plus, Black Ops 7, they even had to get help from both Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer, the other two major studios that do the other two games in the franchises already. At this point, it's taking all three of the major studios plus their support studios to get any one of these next 3 games out the door in the next calendar year. It's insane. But Activision, I feel, won't even really learn anything from this, because all they'll probably learn is they can't release similar sub-franchises in a row, and they will instead demand a pivot so that each annual release is like how I said with Battlefield hypothetically in the future. They'll be like, we want Modern Warfare, then a World War-like game like Vanguard, for example, and then a Black Ops game, and then Modern Warfare again, and then rinse and repeat. It won't solve anything. It will still come down to these developers being worked into the grave, since it takes thousands of people to get these games out the door already. And let's be real, they're already using older maps over and over just to hit the quotas for release. It's just not going to work. I mean, Black Ops 2, by the way, all the way back in the day on the Xbox 360. Remember those days when you were happier and life was simpler? I didn't mean to trauma dump on people, but anyways. Black Ops 2 is still the highest selling game on Xbox 360, as seen here from Charlie Intel. Crazy that Black Ops 1, 2, and Modern Warfare 3 all outsold Halo 3 of all games on Xbox 360. But what's wilder is that all 4 of those games plus Modern Warfare 2 outsold Grand Theft Auto 4 back in the day even too. But again, that's when these franchises were new still in a sense, and they had the player, I guess, loyalty, if you will. But even back then, like Modern Warfare 3's campaign was maybe 4 hours. I can't even speak anymore, dude. Like 4 hours long at best. And can you imagine replaying those campaigns now with all of Call of Duty stuff that they do now to operate? It would be unironically like this meme. Like, here, watch this. Oh no, 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 I hate how accurate that meme is, but that's literally Call of Duty now to a T. And the reviews keep plummeting too, as PC Gamer finally got their score for Black Ops 7 out, and they gave it, surprise, a 4 out of 10 as seen here. They didn't even hold back either. At one point in the review, this is what they said. Black Ops 7 is Call of Duty at its loudest and most obnoxious, made all the worse by sweeping use of generative AI. The taint of this stuff is across the whole of the game. Victory screens, calling cards, weapon skins, and even textures occasionally have that smeary grok look placed front and center for a game that already feels like a bare bones production compared to the usual Call of Duty spectacle. Having to look at assets that resemble straight grok outputs with zero cleanup makes the whole package feel shockingly cheap. The only thing Black Ops 7, in my opinion, has going for it is its core gameplay loop is still fun, but that's true of pretty much any Call of Duty. However, everything surrounding it is just loud noise and lazy assets. I kinda just wish it was anything than what it was. But even with Battlefield this year, I also find myself not as hooked as I would like to be either. I feel as though neither of these franchises really catering to me in a way that I really care for. Maybe, and it's probably this, because both games released this year had middling campaigns that made me care little, if at all, for the world or their characters. In games prior, multiplayer was more fun because I probably felt more connected to the world and its themes. In Black Ops' case, I still don't understand how the whole Scarecrow toxin nonsense worked, but it didn't connect me to the world at all. In Battlefield's case, the whole Pax Armada plotline made little sense, especially when they reveal in the campaign why that mystery force of like random soldiers from around the world are attacking people in the first place. It all just felt contrived. And it's probably very likely why I still can't connect with either of these games' worlds. There's nothing to root for, but I guess I'm in the minority here either way. Or I'm just getting older and less connected to these sorts of games, but it is what it is, I guess. But I get why these sorts of games do so well, even when they aren't doing so hot when it comes to their storylines and stuff. As Tech for Gamers reported here, co-op games in general made over $7 billion combined, man. This massive boost in sales for all sorts of games that people want to play together, from Arc Raiders to Battlefield and Call of Duty, is pretty simple. Players do want games where they can share their experiences together, which is why it's so frustrating when these games just seem to have the inability to make their worlds very interesting at all. Like Battlefield 6 is fun to play, I guess, but I just wish I cared more about its world and themes, but I just don't. And the same with Call of Duty, man. It's a shame. I miss the days of Bad Company 2 or the first Black Ops. There I go again. Remember when you were happy when you were younger? I gotta stop bringing that up. But anyway, look, where these game stories and characters actually made me feel more connected to them, which in turn also made me want to keep playing them. But from what I could find online, Call of Duty in general has lost about 30% of its market share in the past few years alone, and even by 2024, Call of Duty's player base has shrunk by roughly 20% or so too. But the ultimate truth is just this, okay? Activision cannot afford this level of performance when it comes to their flagship series anymore. They need to pivot and fix things before it's too late. I mean, Steam's reviews for Black Ops 7 are mostly negative as well. But what's even more concerning is that we are only a week and a few days after the major launch of this game. Yet already, in terms of top sellers on Steam, as seen here, Black Ops 7 is already falling to number 208, which means unless Activision heavily discounts this game in the future, which is very likely, let's be honest, that this is it for Black Ops 7's performance. There really is no higher point, at least so far, unless the start of Season 1, which is December 4th, somehow turns things around. It's just crazy to me that Call of Duty used to be this undisputed king of gaming, like it was untouchable, nothing could stop its reign. But all it took was the same guy who made Call of Duty into what it was to go to Activision's biggest competitor and then turn their series into the next big thing again. And this is kind of history repeating itself. Because what it kind of tells me that Call of Duty has been missing isn't content or roadmaps, but it's been missing that sauce. It's missing people, the ones who made these games special in the first place. It's like when I spoke over a year ago on how studios have lost their best developers and how so many studios feel like they're the studio's name and name alone, and that it's the people that make these places special. It's like when your favorite coworkers leave a job that you worked at, you know? Sure, it's the same place, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. It was the people that made that place special in the first place. I don't feel that way with Call of Duty anymore because a lot of the people who made those games special aren't there. Sure, they did add some cool additions like the overclock system in Black Ops 7, but generally speaking, have they truly moved the franchise needle forward in any meaningful way? I would argue not really, no, and that sucks to see. And Vince Zampella, who spearheaded Battlefield 6 after making Call of Duty into what it was, had some words to say. This is from Eurogamer. Call of Duty only exists because EA were dicks, claims Battlefield lead Vince Zampella. So the reason for all of this was back in 2002, Vince Zampella worked at a studio called 2015 Incorporated. They were making Medal of Honor Allied Assault. EA at the time screwed over 2015 Incorporated, and the developers, including Vince, were then left in freefall as this Medal of Honor game was essentially taken away from them. This then led to Vince and his team leaving EA and joining Activision, where they would then found Infinity Ward, and then they would make Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. And then in 2013, an artist named Justin Thomas, who also worked on Medal of Honor with Vince in the early 2000s, spoke on this as well, and here's what he said. After leaving 2015, we were working with a major publisher. For legal reasons, I will say things didn't go as planned with it. We were left in a situation of unpaid milestones that were delivered and no finances to operate on. The company was potentially going to disband. In a last-ditch effort, our then president, Grant Collier, sent out a signal to all the major publishers in the industry, letting them know that the majority of the Medal of Honor Allied Assault Team was available. Within days of closing the doors on the studio, Activision responded immediately with an offer. So there you have it. Call of Duty only exists because EA, like Vince said, were just being idiots about all of it, and it inadvertently led to their biggest competitor existing in the first place. Which means that Call of Duty, it could have been an Electronic Arts game franchise, whatever, if they weren't being morons about it in the first place. But the rest, as they say, is history. But the more you know, but I think that's enough for today. But at least one thing is clear, that Activision has lost, and the cancer is finally being removed. And all it took was the entire planet's worth of players out there to confidently just say no more to Activision's tired business model. But what do you think? Can they turn this around, or is it over? Let me know. Thanks for being here, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.